in the Grimdark Strands of the Spinneret by Keith Anthony Baird, published by Brigade's Gate Press, 2022. Betrayal brings grave ending to a noble bloodline. Forced to flee, its sole surviving heir is spared this fate by a timely intervention of a haunter in the wilds. In his charge, the maiden embraces the lore of the dark arts and rises to become the watchkeep of the woods. As decades pass, with her legend growing, the witch of root and earth waves subtle deceits in a tangled web of vengeance. But will there be a fairy tale ending, or will poisoned legacies and pacts with dark forces see ambition unravel in her relentless pursuit of power? Bloody and brilliantly realized, Baird's dark fantasy nightmare spins a lavish tale of dread, desire, and fantastical fury. Where do I even begin? This book's tagline is a fairy tale for elders. As you can probably guess from the title, this is a dark, bleak story, and I loved every bit of it. Let's think Neil Gaiman, written in an almost old world style, with the darkness, fantastical, and gore turned all the way up. Where Gaiman would take us to the edge of dark gothic fairy tales, Keith Anthony Baird pushes us over the edge while whispering his dark thoughts and imagery through a vast lexicon as we plummet into the abyss. Okay, I tried, but I just can't write like this author does. I mean, can we just stop and appreciate the talent that went into just the title alone? In the Grimdark Strands of the Spinneret is a wonderful dark fantasy horror novella, and the way it is written is the icing on the cake, at least for me. I usually listen to music when I read, but for this one, I found myself turning the music off so I could concentrate fully on the wording that was used. This author's vocabulary is absolutely astounding, and it is written in such a way that I forgot that I was reading a story that had just been released. It has an old world feel to it with its wording, as if you're reading something that is centuries old. Keeping with the fairy tale theme, none of the characters are even given a name. Everyone is referenced by titles, further adding to the timeless feeling of the story. The story itself follows an old crone with strange dark powers and all the people that seek her out for dark favors, and the curses those favors ultimately bring down. The tale weaves through generations in a secluded valley and castle, bordered by an ancient forest that the crone calls home. Mix in dark magic, necromancy, malicious human-spider hybrids, undead warriors, all piled on top of a classical-style story of generational sin, and you will start to get a feeling of what this story is all about. Any fans of Lovecraft or Poe will be sure to love this story. As darkly beautiful and equally horrific as the story is, I'm struggling to find pieces to talk about in fear of spoiling how this tale unfolds. How about I just give you a sampling of the theme and writing style? This won't spoil much as it's from chapter 1. Enchanted moonlight sets down a path for her to follow, and a nocturnal birthing begins. Cut from the corpse, the lifeless infant was administered surgical demonology. The parts unneeded were removed and fed to the wild things which came at the crone's behest. These were the offerings given in exchange for other pieces, which were grafted to the reimagined corporal shard. An effigy of root twine and dark ochre was fashioned with great care, and then set to flame with a smoke blown by mouth over the motionless construct. As the hexen dolly reduced, the incantation was evoked between creeping fumes which slipped in eldritch ways into the nose and throat. And so it came to pass, in the most empty hour of the night, that new life was born from the entrails of death, and its cries were another weeping of the forest. This passage is just from the first couple of pages, and sets the stage for a wild story that follows, one that covers generations of the secluded valley that it takes place in. The crone in this story is an eerie, dark character that was a lot of fun to follow along with. As the story progresses, though, you shift from seeing her as the ultimate villain of the tale to realizing that may not be fully the case, as dark forces seem to want her destruction. The shift from being creeped out by her to sympathizing with her to ultimately rooting for her was something that I did not see coming, but that is exactly what happened. For me, this is one of those stories I would love to revisit, but the emotions and feelings from the very first read of it will always be missed. This little novella had me going through the rest of the author's catalog to see what other dark tales he can weave. I've spoken a few times in past reviews about imagining certain stories being made into movies, but with this one, I'm just not sure I'd want to see that done. I love the imagery that this author's writing style brought to my mind, and honestly, I can't think of a way for any Hollywood-type studio to do it any better. I'm afraid any visual interpretation attempts would just fall flat. For any fans of horror and dark fantasy, I would greatly recommend In the Grimdark Strands of the Spinneret. As stated before, any fans of Lovecraft and Poe are sure to appreciate the dark imagery and nightmares that this little story can inspire. For anyone that takes this recommendation to heart, let me know what you think about the story and any recommendations of similar pieces that you may have. I'm always on the lookout for themes such as this. Until next time, find yourself a good book and enjoy a break from reality. I hope to see you here again soon.